help our minds to function better. And it's just wonderful to know what God has given to us. Sleep is another thing that's so important for the mind. Do you know that one complete night of sleep deprivation is as impairing in simulated driving tests as a legally intoxicating blood alcohol level? I thought that was powerful. If you just miss one night of sleep and you get on and do one of these simulated driving tests, you will do just as bad as if your blood level was at a legally intoxicating level. So that tells you how sleep, when you deprive yourself of sleep, how that can affect you. What happens during sleep? The brain repairs itself during sleep. And any machinery that we have needs time to repair and maintain itself. And that's what happens during sleep. When we miss that sleep, that reparation process cannot go on. The brain also processes memories. It practices and hones new skills and even solves problems during sleep. They've shown research where a person learns a skill, goes to sleep, and it helps them develop that skill even better. So sleep is so important. When we miss it, we are really having a negative impact on our mind. This study in Science, published in Science Daily, says that insufficient sleep among adolescents may contribute to lower grades, lack of motivation, and also may increase the odds of serious levels of emotional and behavioral disturbances. When I was in private practice, many parents would bring their teenagers in saying, oh, they're acting out, they're having depression, their grades are lowering. Back then, I didn't know what I knew now. If only I knew then what I know now, I would start assessing things such as what they're eating. I would start asking them, when is your teenager going to bed? How much sleep is he or she getting? And I'm sure if I had addressed some of these problems and the parents and teenagers were willing to make some changes, we would have seen some more improvements as opposed to them coming into me and just talking about their problems, which I've moved away from because I recognize that does not help brain function and it really doesn't help the problem. The best time to sleep, 2 hours before midnight is the best time to get to sleep. And we're told by my favorite health educator that 2 hours of sleep before midnight is worth 4 hours of sleep after midnight. So going to bed from 10 to 12 is worth just as much as sleeping from 12 to 4. So you want to get as much sleep before midnight as you can, because if you look at what happens physiologically, when you go to bed at that time, certain hormones are released. Growth hormones, melatonin, and all of that is important to help the mind function better. Jesus even recognized the importance of rest when he said to the disciples, come ye yourselves apart in a desert place and rest a while. We all need rest, and we can't push ourselves to the point where we're not getting rest. We may get the tasks done, but the long-term results are ones that we will not like. Another thing that affects the minds is thoughts. What we think, this neuropsychologist says, what we think is killing us. Look at this. The Bible tells us this. For as he thinketh, well, it doesn't tell us it kills us, but the Bible says that what we think will affect us. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he, the wise man tells us. The Bible also says, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Philippians 4:8. I want to go back to the thing about what we think is killing us. We don't recognize that stress is killing us. And oftentimes stress comes about not so much because of what's happening to us, but because of what we think about what's happening to us. And we can literally kill ourselves with our thoughts, which has an impact on our mind. And we have to find that out and catch ourselves when we're thinking these things that really work ourselves up and can literally get us to a point where we're killing ourselves. We need to be so mindful of that. Let's look at something else with the brain. Some of you all know that our brain is divided into 4 lobes. There's the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. But for purposes of today, we're only going to focus on the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is a very important part of our functioning as human beings. In fact, 33% of our brain is the frontal lobe, whereas with the cat, I think it's very low, below 10%. The cat doesn't have the abilities that we have, the thinking abilities and all of that. So we need to recognize that the frontal lobe is very important, and there are things we can do that can either enhance our frontal lobe functioning or make it worse. And let's talk about some of this. Entertainment TV. It puts us in a hypnotic trance because, as with hypnosis, it bypasses our frontal lobe. The information comes in, and our frontal lobe, which is responsible for critical decision making and judgment, when we are hypnotized, it goes right past that. So we can't make decisions about the hypnosis. And TV does the same thing, especially entertainment TV. Entertainment TV, we're so passive, we're not thinking, we're not using much of our brains, we're just being entertained. And if we expose ourselves to all of that, we're not going to have the best brains, because as with exercise of the body, we need our brains to be exercised. Entertainment TV does not exercise our brains. So we need to be careful what we're watching. I wanted to just show this. There are different types of brain waves, the beta waves, the alpha waves, the theta waves, and the delta waves. When we're watching TV, well, this is the most active, the beta waves. When we're doing something, we're awake, we're alert. When we're doing something that's exercising our brains, if you were to put an EEG on us, you'll see that it's producing beta waves. However, when we get more relaxed and we're daydreaming, we go into alpha waves and alpha wave pattern. And in that way, we're really not thinking that much. And when you measure a person who's watching entertainment TV, typically their brain is in alpha wave, then we have theta wave and delta wave. But we don't want to stay in alpha wave a lot if we want to exercise the brain. We also want to make sure that we're in more of a beta wave kind of thing. And the reason I put this on there is because we need to recognize that what we do can affect our brain waves. And we want to make that brain function and exercise. If we don't use it, we will do what? Lose it. And we don't want to do that. Television weakens our brain power. It increases daydreaming. Studies have been shown that children who watch a lot of television are more likely to daydream. It decreases the ability to discriminate truth versus a lie. There was an experiment study done where people were given information in 3 different ways, either by reading it, by watching it, or by listening to it. The ones who were able to discriminate what was truth versus what was a lie the best were those who read it. The ones who were next best were those who listened to it. But those who watched the information were not able to make that discrimination as great, which lets us know the brain is not functioning and processing information as well when we just watch it. Reading and listening is better. So television decreases that ability. It also weakens creativity. Television weakens creativity, and we're not able to be as creative. It increases irritability in children as well, and it encourages poor lifestyle habits because typically we sit in front of the TV, legs stretched out, we don't want to move about, we're sedentary, and we're eating things we shouldn't eat. I notice when I watch TV and eat, I tend to eat more, even if it's something healthy. So eating TV encourages poor lifestyle habits. We want to stay away from a lot of entertainment TV. That's the point I'm making. This was interesting. This study found, or actually it was a medical doctor who found this study. He says for every hour a day on average children watch television, their risk of being diagnosed with ADD increases by 10%. And we wonder why people are having more problems with ADD. If a child watches 5 hours a day, he or she has a 50% risk of developing ADD. That's pretty serious. Watching television also increases your risk of Alzheimer's disease. So we're wondering why these diseases are increasing. Why are more kids being diagnosed with ADD? Why are more elderly being diagnosed with Alzheimer's? If we look at some of these studies, we see people are not exercising as more. They're eating more terribly. They're watching more TV. And again, it's because it's affecting the mind, affecting the frontal lobe. And yet what we're doing is medicating and not recognizing. If we could just help people change lifestyles, many of these diseases can be reversed. The Bible tells us, I will set no wicked thing before my eye. When the Bible was written, Psalms, when David wrote this, he had no idea about television. But I believe that the principle still applies. We need to make sure that we will say to ourselves, I will set no wicked thing before my eye because of the impact it can have on my mind and my body, my brain. Another thing that we need to watch is reading, what we read. The mind is ruined, which is allowed to be absorbed in story reading. The imagination becomes diseased. Sentimentalism takes possession of the mind, and there is a strange appetite for unwholesome mental food, which is constantly unbalancing the mind. I gave a story before of a young lady with whom I worked, and she was reading a lot of novels and was in a bad relationship that she kept getting in and out of, and I